Welcome to the Edifice Complex, the property design and development podcast. Let your hosts Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean keep you up with who is innovating and doing great work, perspective on the adjacent possible, and challenges to the status quo.
Welcome to the Edifice Complex. I am Robert Bean, your co-host and unofficial mediator, here with my colleague, official agitator, friend, and Yoda of everything to do with buildings, Mr. Adam Muggleton. Say hello, Sir Yoda.
Hello there. Okay, so this time we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects and one of the things I'm more skeptical on. One of my favorite subjects is data centers, and one of the things I'm a little bit skeptical on is CFD. So we shall see where this goes.
The only way I know how to introduce today's guest is somewhat the same way that I introduce speakers when I'm chairing a conference, and I get their bios, and you could spend a whole seminar, a lot of time reading someone's bio, so I usually harvest, a few of the bits and pieces, and that's what I've done today with this gentleman's bio, because if we actually read it, we would take forever to do it. So the only way I'm going to introduce this guy is to maybe list some of his clients, and that'll give you an idea of who we're talking with. His client base includes people like Yahoo, Facebook, Dell, Ford, GM, York International, GE, Pratt & Whitney, Cummins, Delphi. The list goes on, Warner Labrador, and Lockheed Martin. That's all you need to know.
All the small firms.
all the small firms. He approached me. This was a few years ago. I was doing a seminar on using finite element analysis for radiant heating and cooling. And he came up afterwards and said, "Hey, Mr. Bean, why are you not using computational fluid dynamics to look at your systems?" And from that point on, I've been sort of lurking in his shadow, observing what he's been doing for the world of building science and health sciences. He earned his PhD from the University of Minnesota, and his CV includes consultant engineer for ANSYS, associate partner at Cisco Hennessy, but today is now his own president of Ansite. Welcome to the show, Dr. Kishor Khankari.
My pleasure, Robert and Adam. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Kishor, I don't remember when it was, but you came up to me, I think it might have been in an ASHRAE DL social, and you said to me, good indoor environmental quality is a right.
Yes.
And that's a right that everybody that occupies a building has a right to good indoor environmental quality. And I remember you saying that and how profound that was, because it is definitely a right. And so I want you to explain to our audience how you ended up some 60 years ago graduating from your first degree or so, and then you're fighting for the rights of occupants in buildings all over the world. Give us the short story.
Yeah. I will try to make it short, but the story is long. I was born in India and grew up in a small town in India, not a big city boy. And my mother wanted me to become agricultural scientist. And so I went to the agriculture college. I finished the first year with all A grades, and my physics professor came to me and said, "Hey, you are too smart for this college. You should go to agriculture engineering." And they were enrolling people in agriculture engineering discipline. So I went there. I did my BTech in agriculture engineering. And I was fascinated by heat transfer, of course, mass transfer and moisture movement in the grains and drying and whatnot. And then I did masters from one of the prime institutions in Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, IIT they call it. And I did my masters. They call post-harvest engineering, so food processing, basically grain processing. And then I was doing work on biomass gasification there. And so while I was doing my work, I wanted to come to US for doing PhD. And I applied at University of Minnesota. I had a grant on biomass gasification. So they said, "Come on, we'll do PhD in biomass gasification." I landed there in 87 fall. And within 2 months, federal government pulled all the grants from renewable energy and my project is gone on biomass gasification. So my advisor said, okay, why can't you go to mechanical engineering? And I already finished my 8,000 level heat transfer, mass transfer, fluid mechanics, whatnot, all advanced courses. See, there is a professor who teaches computational fluid dynamics. Go and take his courses. We'll see. We'll do something, some project on moisture migration in grain bean. I said, wow, it sounds good. I went there and I took my first class in computational fluid dynamics from no other than Professor Suhas Patel, who is the pioneer in computational fluid dynamics. He wrote a couple of books. His theories are well known all over the world. And I tell you, that the world of heaven opened for me.
Hmm.
I did all advanced level heat transfer, mass transfer courses to know that I cannot solve practical problems using the mathematical equation. And I was so frustrated. Even a simple heat transfer problem I could not solve because, hey, there's no boundary condition for there's no eigenvalue for this, whatnot. I say, oh my God, this is nothing but just a bunch of advanced mathematics. And I took first class of CFD and I said, I can do anything. I can solve any practical problem and get the solution. And that day I decided, this is my life now. This is what I want to do the rest of my life. And then I finished my PhD and applied computational fluid dynamics to moisture migration in soybean and corn. And my mechanical engineering professor was blew off knowing that. He never thought that CFD can be applied to grain beans because most of the time he was using for aerospace and this kind of advanced technology. And here we go, a total rural application. And I am so excited about my project. I don't know whether you know what is moisture migration in grain. In Minnesota, farmers harvest the grain in the fall, correct? And they dry it and it's a bit warm that time. And then they put it in big 60 feet diameter silos. And grain is a poor insulator. I mean, good insulator, poor conductor of heat. And as the metal walls, they start minus 10 degrees. The grain at the core is still at 40 degrees, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and here you go. You will set up a temperature gradient that develops the natural convection current.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And then it takes the moisture from the bulk of the bean and gets up there and it's cold between the roof and the grain. And there you go.
Condensation.
Condensation, mold. And farmers generally throw foot in half when they open the bean out because it's all mold and thing. And so how to aerate these beans, way to aerate these beans, because they have huge fans and they push the ambient air through that. You don't want to push it when it's too cold. You don't want to push it when it's too warm. I mean, what's the right now? Anyway, very good. That time I used Cray computer in 87. Because in Minnesota was the house of Cray, as you know, and just the vector plots, and I had to cut it and paste it in my thesis. Anyway, so my
students are going, what? Cut, paste, what?
Yeah,
like actual scissors.
Actual scissors, pasting, going to the Kinko's to get the copies made. In any case, after finishing my PhD, my advisor said, this looks really good because, hey, you can now use CFD for agriculture and food processing applications. So come on, I have a company on the side. Of course, all good universities promote professors to have their own business.
Yeah.
And so he recruited, right? And with the goal that I will establish CFD business for food and agriculture industry. And guess what? It is a low profit, low tech, low margin. I have to make the cold call and say, hey, I can solve your problem and I know CFD. And they used to hung up on me and say, we don't need any plumber. And they thought I'm a plumber calling for some plumbing business, But then, of course, I broke through the market and my first client was Cargill. and they have this. Uh, there's a lot of these feed mills, correct? Animal feed mills, and they once they extrude this feed and they put it in a cooler to cool it, and then they blow the ambient air through that and say, hey. One day, this manager was so frustrated because Kishore is calling every month. Hey, do you have work for me? Do you have work for me? I said, come on. He never thought that I will do the project. And he said, here is the problem. During cooling process, we flash off a lot of moisture from outfit and we lose the tonnage. So can you help us up here? Yeah, I can do that. Because I knew process of drying. I know the hygroscopic nature of the grain. And I model that and there you go. And then I work for that's in Purina, optimizing their extruded pet food dryer. I worked for a farmer in Minnesota who was inventing a new wood chip dryer and helping him to optimize that. And then got a lot of USDA grants on animal housing, ventilation and all that. And then I joined after about working there 7-8 years, learning CFD, how to apply for real life problems. That's where I worked with Pratt and Whitney, Lockheed Martin, all these people. And then I went to Fluid, which is the big daddy that time. Still, it's a big name in computational science, very well known software. And there again opened a whole new world because this was very well tested and validated fluid software used by a variety of industries. You just name it. And
yeah, I think it's the gold standard. I think in for fourth year university students that are learning. Yeah.
So then they hired me to establish automotive CFD consulting business. That's why I'm an Arbor, close to Detroit, for all victories. And I learned how automotive industry works and how they use CFD and all that. It was fascinating, I tell you. And then 9/11 happened. And then the anthrax attack happened in Washington, if you recall. Yeah, and Senator Daschle office. And Fluent got a call. It said, hey, we need someone to do real-time simulation of injecting chlorine dioxide so that we can kill the anthrax spores. And say, well, Kishore obviously knows a little bit about agriculture. I said, agriculture has nothing to do with anthrax spores. So, okay. I went there. That time I was not citizen. I had to clear all the security clearance. And they had a huge tent in front of that post office. And they said, okay, give me the drawing of the post office. No drawing. This is the old post office. You put the suit on. We'll give you the tablets. Nothing will happen to you. Go inside and draw it. Yeah, I was so scared. And I told them, like, look, if I can draw it, you can draw it also. So you go. Because what I can do, you cannot do.
Right.
You can't do the CFD model. I will do the CFD model. You go and bring the drawing. In any case. So I was there sitting about a week or two, doing the modeling real time and guiding them where to inject chlorine dioxide so that it spreads properly all the nooks and cracks there. And so, and then of course they took me to the Capitol Hill because Senator Daschle's office was also affected that time. And here is the story. I was asking them, is there a big obstruction in his office? And he was from South Dakota, if you remember. And he said, oh, he had a stuffed buffalo in his office. I can't model a stuffed buffalo. I will just put a huge block there to obstruct the air.
I remember that because they were talking about air handling units becoming weapons delivery systems. And I was going in and out of DC at the time, and they were talking about making all the federal buildings like move their outside air inlets for all their handling units up to a high level, and all stuff. It was really fascinating time. Paranoia everywhere, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
And so there you go. And then they said, okay, Kishore, looks like there is a business for HVAC, for CFD. And now you establish a consulting business for HVAC. And there you go. And then I now started looking, I became Asher Wemble just to understand what HVAC is, and what is involved. And then I came to know, oh, there are data centers, there are clean rooms, there are hospitals, there are people. And I started doing that. And just because data center CFD was a big cash cow at that time, and I said, okay, let's develop a dedicated software, which is very easy to use. People can just play with it, drag and drop, correct components like air handler, drop the cabinets, all those things, and build the model and say, run it. It will send the model to the Fluent's parallel computing station, solve it, create a kind of a canned report, if you will, correct? Because remember, most of the people, they are interested in solving their, they are not interested in learning CFD, correct?
Correct. 100% correct.
I mean, you go to doctor, correct, physician, if you are basically, you are not asking doctor to read the encyclopedia of medical science.
Right.
You want a prescription. That's right. And so I'm in the business of giving the prescriptions, leave CFD to me. Correct? I spent my 4 valuable years of my life doing a PhD and the background of it. But in any case, so that's what I developed, that software called FullSafe. And one day Fluent was bought by Ansys. And one fine morning, I came to know they sold my software to someone else. I had a job, but out of job. I said, what is this? This is the cruel corporate world of America.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
America, baby.
I felt so sad and so disappointed with the corporate world's cruelty. And I said, no, I don't want to work here. I was looking for a job. And Cisco Energy hired me, but they had a ton of problems, smoke exhaust system, correct? Natural ventilation, radiant heating, cooling, displacement, whatnot.
The whole thing,
all those things. And they needed someone like me who can model and give the guidance, optimizing the design. And there, I really learned about what HVAC market is, what HVAC business is, became very active, I remember, joined several technical committees to understand what exactly it is. I mean, what is displacement? What is UFAT? What is radiant heating cooling? And after working there, then I started about 13 years ago, my own. I said, enough wisdom has been collected now that I can now use it, not just to the benefit of industry and humanity in general, but for my own benefit, because then I had no restriction which projects I can do, what I can write, because as you know, in addition to the helping my clients, I have several things in my mind that I need to model and understand myself and share that knowledge with industry. So over the years, working in variety of HVAC applications, I came to this conclusion, and that's where I talk to you. And I still believe in this. I came to know IEQ, indoor environmental quality or indoor air quality, should be the fundamental human right.
Mm-hmm.
Why I say that? Because I saw all the design practices. Robert, Adam, what is construction drawing? Construction drawing from mechanical engineering color is a bunch of ductwork. Designing an air handler. And then laying down the ducts and punching the diffusers on those ducts, maybe written somewhere. And then the mechanical engineering drawing is done. And I said, well, the real world is under the ceiling. We live under the ducts.
Mm,
What happens to me in my chair here in my office
yeah.
has nothing to do what air handler I have, maybe remotely, but not directly. And then I said, I need to put the microscope on the people where they live, where they sit, where they work, where they sleep, and understand what is the role of air movement around them, correct? And have this excellent tool in mind, which is computational fluid dynamics. I mean, again, there are believers and non-believers, correct? Skeptics.
Well, like Adam said, he was good. He has some skepticism, and we have.
Yeah, you should
Yeah.
have. Skeptics.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Edifice Complex will continue in just a moment.
Are you struggling with paperwork, spreadsheet overload, and project management? Then Blue Rhythm is the solution to help you. Streamline your commissioning and project management process. Go paperless, increase efficiency, and save money. Blue Rhythm is commissioning and project management software by practitioners for practitioners, adapting to your workflows and processes, and doing things your way. Blue Rhythm provides painless and fast onboarding by bringing your existing workflows, forms, checklists, and issues logs into Blue Rhythm for you. You can use their pre-built templates to customize your commissioning workflows. And Blue Rhythm can fully handle the transition from your current software platform. Blue Rhythm is secure, scalable, and reliable, backed by amazing support, and accessible 24/7 on any Windows, iOS, or Android device. Why are you still using paper and hard-to-control spreadsheets? Start your free Blue Rhythm account today at bluerhythm.com.
And now, back to the show.
Adam and I just completed an interview with another individual not too long ago, and we were talking about in Canada, there's a tier of technology that's in between sort of the tradesperson and the engineer, and it's the technologist. And then that dialogue, we were talking about, kids that are in school get their degrees and then go on to get their master's degrees or their PhDs. And Adam and I have been, and mainly Adam, I'm going to throw him under the bus. Are you okay with that, Adam?
That's where I live, mate, under that bus.
Was talking about, like, for God's sakes, if you're going to get your degree and you want to make money, stop at your degree. Don't go on to get your master's or your PhD unless, you're going to do those studies in adjacent fields, which you have done. You, coming from the agricultural world into the HVAC world, has exposed you to a lot of different things. Now, we have a lot of parents and a lot of students that listen to the podcast, because part of our ethos here is talking to kids that are in school, trying to figure out what they want to do with their careers. And you have, I think, in terms of somebody who's gone on to got their advanced degree, have taken your knowledge and done exactly what a PhD should do in terms of earning some income, and that is go and start your own company and find some big clients to do work for. Because we've had a lot of academics on our program who also have been into the practical world, like Dr. Banflo. There's a great example, or Marcel Harmon. We have a lot of guys that went on, that were smart, super smart, women that went on and started to apply their knowledge. But a lot of people have that brain and they end up stuck in academia and they have no practical experience with their knowledge, where you do. And I think one of the lessons that we can right off the bat from this podcast is to understand that if you are a brainiac and you're going to go on and get your advanced degrees, do something with it other than have it lost. And then you're an example of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just to build on that a bit, Kishor, I mean, what I heard you say was, you started off, obviously you've had this arc or circle, in fact, academic, come back, you've wound up in the application practical space, applying it, right? Which is probably a good use of your skills now, right? You've taken that knowledge. But what I heard you say was that before CFD, you were stuck in the pure mathematics world and it wasn't solving a lot of problems. And then for you, CFD is like the way of taking that science, that knowledge, that skill, language, which is what pure maths is, right? And applying it to real world things. So is CFD the bridge to take pure math to applied math?
Yeah, definitely. So for engineering of heat transfer, mass transfer, fluid mechanics is concerned, absolutely. Now, don't take me wrong. Let's first tackle this question of advanced degree and brainy thing and being nerd and all those things. Well, after I finished my master's degree in India, I was teaching there for 4 years. I was totally in academic work, doing work on biomass gasification, publishing papers, guiding students, whatnot. So I had that flavor of academic. I was not like fresh out of graduate and went in applied engineering. Not like that. And so when I finished my PhD degree, from many years before that, even I was doing masters, I was fascinated by practical engineering problems. Correct? Not that I didn't like publishing papers or things like that, doing basic science. I did that. But I was more dragged into more applied work. That's why I was doing biomass gasification, where I developed a stove for farmers in India, a biomass. But farmers in India, they burn in rural community.
Oh, they burn everything, right?
The wood and chips and whatnot,
Dung, yeah.
And dung, cow dung, the cake, cow dung cake. And this was like a lot of carbon monoxide exposure and whatnot. And I said, I need to deliver a stove that burns clean. And I developed that based on pyrolysis of biomass. But in any case, so I was always fascinated by application side, the science. And so after finishing PhD and learning CFD, it was no-brainer that I don't want to go in academia. I don't want to become professor. Not that I didn't like it. I had a flavor of it. And I said, I'm not where I can do a lot of basic science and create, of course, professors create their own kingdom, correct? They have their own students and their science and they're experts in the field and they do fantastic basic science. But that was not me. I wanted to solve engineering problems, practical problems. I wanted to talk to Adam and Robert and say, hey, tell me,
that is everybody's ambition to talk to us.
Exactly. So after doing PhD, most of the people, they take the academia because they are trained to think analytically and they don't find opportunities in the practical work. So as Adam said, the bridge between the advanced level heat transfer and CFD and the real world is CFD. So after seeing that, coming back to how the youngsters and fresh graduates can be happy, number one, be satisfied what they are doing, and same time earn money. Correct?
Yeah.
But life is not just about earning money. It's easy for me to say now.
We rich old guys say, yeah, money's not everything, right?
Yeah. But when I look back at me and I said, why I'm successful, whatever I am today, is because of my passion. And I think all young people need to find their passion and they need to find it early. What are they are really gravitating towards? I mean, somebody may be graduate from engineering, but more in the stock market. And then they just love it. Every day they go to their stock market, check stocks and whatnot. It's very clear the person has passion for how the stocks works, how the financial markets work. And that person should not just think, oh, I'm engineer, I have a degree, and this is totally a financial work. If it's your passion, then go for it. It's the passion. Uh, you don't have to do PhD to pursue your passion, correct?
Mm.
But those who are more analytical mind and they get gravitated toward differential equations and whatnot. Yeah,
Sick people.
yeah, certainly. I mean, they can pursue masters and go for PhD because PhD in any field, in my opinion, what it is training you is how to think analytically. No matter which field you do, even if PhD in literature, correct?
Yeah, and that was one of the conclusions that came out of our interview is that a technician, when you come out of school, you have a defined area of practice,
Yes.
and you're taught that area, and you can immediately apply it into industry. Where the engineering degree, especially in the advanced degrees, it teach you to think more horizontally or vertically. Well, you'd think in 3 dimensions, and you can apply your knowledge anywhere as long as you've got that understanding. And Peter Simmons. We've had Peter on the show, I think, twice. I think, Adam.
Yeah, twice. He's one of my heroes actually. And what did he call CFD? Colors for directors.
But there's a guy, and a lot of people don't, if you don't know Peter's background, I mean, he started out fitting pipes. I think it was at a nuclear facility.
Yeah, he was a apprentice plant engineer.
Yeah. And, and someone recognized that he had the capacity to do something a little different. And I love the Matt. I mean, he, because he started out fitting pipes, he has the most colorful language as anybody else. And he's also...
I'm aware of that language.
You know what? Peter is what I would call academic blunt force trauma.
And that's, but again, like there's an individual that's worked on some of the most challenging architectural buildings around the world.
Indeed.
And the reason why is because he has the experience of somebody that's been on the field with the tools all the way through to academia, and he understands in ways that other people can't because he's had that experience.
Yeah.
And I've seen Peter, work in the world of academia with but
he's a pipe fitter with a world of academics.
And rightly so. Like he has zero tolerance for the bullshit that happens in the world of construction and architecture and in the world of academia, and he has no problem calling people on it.
Yeah, I know.
I've had Peter work on committees with me where I was handbook chair, or not handbook chair, but chair of a user manual.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to the chair of our committee at the time, saying I wanted to nominate Peter to be on my review committee. And he said, "Are you nuts?
Are you sure?"
And I said, "Listen, there will be very few people in the world of ASHRAE that will take a document from the very first cover to the last cover, the back and the front, and he will read every word in between, and he'll read every formula, and he'll look at every schematic, and you will get feedback. And you may not like the way that you get that feedback, and you may not like the process that you have to go through to extract that information from him. But at the end of the day, he is one of the most thorough individuals that I know in terms of looking at documents, and that's why I had him on."
I agree. Yeah. Now, look at that example. Why Peter is Peter today, it's because of his passion.
Yeah.
He did not stick with the plumbing business, correct?
Yep.
He gravitated towards his passion, and that's where he became a successful engineer today. About academia, I agree with Peter on that part, because what is missing, especially in HVAC world, is there is nothing in between the practical world and academic. Nobody is translating that into usable information that you and I can use. Right? See, because of my PhD background, I have patience to go through all the research papers. Correct? Most of the people don't have that patience,
Yeah.
to go through the academic language. Okay? I mean, you just don't see any sense from where you are looking at it. Right? When one professor reads another professor's literature or paper, they are very well tuned to each other. The
Yeah, they speak the
communication.
language to each other, right?
Yeah, exactly, and they find uh, the commas and periods where the Greek is missing and all that, right? Those who are on the practical side, like Peter, um, they don't have patience to go through all this,
No.
and they nobody there. See, academic world, their way of success is tuned to publishing papers, doing high-end basic science research, and be successful in that world, correct? Um, but but they are not there. Don't expect from professors to tell you, distill their work into a capsule that you can swallow. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that's not their word. So we are, in general, we are missing that link, especially national. So when I was RAC chair, I worked in a research administration committee, ASHRAE, and I served 6 years and became a chair. And I said, well, every research project, when it is completed, two things should be done. The PI should write plain English abstract. Okay, don't show me any Greek in that paragraph.
No Greek. I like that.
Don't show beta and alpha. I don't understand. Correct? And write a one-page paragraph or one-page description of your research that anybody on the street can understand what you did, and then do a 5-minute video and tell people how they should use your research. Correct? And that's where the problem is. I mean, even being in academia for some time and being degree in PhD, when few problems I do, some few projects I do, I go back to academic research to see what some coefficients are, what they did, what are their findings, what are the field tests, correct? How they did a test in a laboratory, radiant heating cooling or displacement ventilation, correct? How they did it, what parameters they used. And I struggle myself to sweep through that and find the things I need that I can use in my business, correct? So we have that missing link, and I don't blame Peter for that.
Look, if you think about it, right, Peter's gone from like apprentice, like practical pipe fitter, to academic, back to practitioner. He's had a really unique journey. People tend to get stuck at either like, earlier like trades or academia. It's very unusual to have that whole circle. So, he is an unusual person in that he's an academic who delivers real world outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
That is not normal. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
A lot of academics wind up in pure design or not getting into the delivery side, or even just staying in academia, right? One of the key points there is, you will be a professor, you need your PhD. So he's unusual, but going on to like delivery. Now, you've sort of softened me on CFD a little bit because you've made that link in my brain between like pure math and applied delivery with CFD. I get that now. I'm a little bit more or less colors for directors now. But yeah, it has its place, right? CFD. Like in my mind, CFD is for like, complex labs, hospitals and pressure regimes, biochemical labs, data centers, maybe if you're trying to optimize airflow. Does CFD have a real place in everyday design? So we were talking about IAQ, right? So for me, if I'm designing my dream office, it is displacement ventilation, radiant heating and cooling. Is there a place for CFD in that?
Yeah. So I think let's first understand what computational fluid dynamics is, correct? Just put it in a context of HVAC. Let's not talk about
let's not overcomplicate it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens around people See, first of all, everyone needs to understand buildings are for the people.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trademark
okay.
Robert Bean.
Yeah.
Let's write this in bold letter. Huge point. Buildings are for the people. Buildings are not the ductwork. Buildings are not the brick and mortar. Buildings are not just the air handlers, not the windows, not the pretty pictures and good glass and whatnot. Buildings at the end of the day are for people, with exception of data centers, for example. There may be examples there, but still, there are people wandering in a data center. In any case, most of the time, buildings are not just shelters. They are the places where people should find comfort. Okay, we are not in the Stone Age where I'm building my hut and hiding inside, correct? I go to movie theater, restaurant, ashtray conferences. I work in my home or office, wherever I go. I'm a person, and I expect good thermal comfort. My feet should not get cold when I sit in a ashtray plenary session for hour and a half. Correct? Well, and I should breathe good air and whatnot. Correct? Acoustic part of it. Correct? The glare on my eyes, everything related to IEQ. That's where that E comes from.
Yep.
Other than A. Well, if that is the case, and if air is the primary carrier of heat, moisture, and contaminants, and if you leave your mechanical design in the duct only, and you are done with your construction drawings without knowing your clients, and who are your clients? This is my another favorite sentence. Your clients are not architects. Your clients are not owners. Your clients are the people. The people.
You have
Who are
zero
going
voice
to-
in the design process. Remember that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is the only industry, in my opinion, that there is a huge disconnect between the design world and the real consumer.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I just want to interject here because this is a great discussion. You know, Kishore, I've said this, and Adam, we said this on the show before. For those that are listening, particularly if you're a practicing engineer, or technician, or even in the trades, that HVAC calculations are not thermal comfort calculations, and HVAC design is not comfort design. It's exactly what Kishore is saying. That's, you know, your calculations take you either into the pipes, into the ducts. You're dealing with boilers, chillers, pumps, fans, blowers, control systems. That's what the load calculations do, but they do not address IEQ until you do IEQ calculations.
Exactly.
You have to go that next step. And the reality is, for those that are listening again, it's not a huge leap. If you can do load calculations, you can do thermal comfort calculations. If you can do flow calculations, you can do IEQ calculations. It's not a huge leap. But never delude yourself to thinking that just because you've done a load calculation or done duct design or pipe design that you've done comfort design. You haven't.
No. Yeah, exactly. And I agree with that. Coming back to CFD, to Adam's question. So what is computational fluid dynamics? It is a science. Basically, it's not a magic. It's not statistical science, correct? It's not, I'm collecting the data from people who live in Ann Arbor, fitting a curve, a regression curve, correct? And then I take that curve to London, which is useless because that data is for Ann Arbor, correct? Computational fluid dynamics is a fundamental science. Underneath, it's a conservation of mass, conservation of energy, correct? Conservation of momentum. Very basic engineering physics principles. What happened is your classical world of mathematics cannot solve practical problem because of the limitation of mathematics. We go back to the drawing board where we started developing our differential equation. I said, hey, instead of going the route of mathematical process or classical mathematics, I take a route where I discretize everything. If you are sitting in that room and I want to know what is the temperature around Robert, then I fill that room with imaginary bricks, if you will, correct? And I solve the balance equation on each brick. I start from the roof, I start from the wall, and I said, I know what's the temperature on the wall is, correct? Let that infiltrate in the room by the basic laws of physics, correct? And you keep on iterating. It needs iteration. It's not one time. It's not a. That's why you can't do it in Excel spreadsheet because there is no formula. You have to keep on crunching the number unless you satisfy the basic conservation law. Correct? This is in nutshell what CFD is. Once you do that, a wealth of information opens up for you. It tells you what's the temperature around Robert, what is the velocity of the air around him, what is the humidity around him.
The mean radiant
what is-
temperature, right?
Yeah, and then as a standard 55 Fragger's equation that tells you how you can tie the radiant temperature, air variable temperature, velocity, humidity into one equation that will tell you how Robert will feel, whether he will feel hot or cold in his chair. Correct? So, if you really want to serve the people, you need to understand how air moves around the people. It's not set point temperature.
Yeah.
No, it's always a dynamic thing. So
Yeah,
what I'm
that's-
hearing
and
is,
that's-
right, if you was a salesman for a CFD software,
Yeah.
you would be saying to me, you can't really design well without it. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Is that a bit too
you
much?
ask me if I were a salesperson, it's a different hat than than an activist. Correct? I'm an activist. Correct? But to answer your question, I will tie the cost of software
Yeah.
to the profit of the company. If I will say, if you use my software and the license is $40,000 a year, by solving this using CFD, you will get $400,000 in profit. Okay. Our industry lacks that. So I can't be a CFD software person for HVAC industry. Don't put me there.
So one of the
Because-
things we sorry, go on.
Yeah. We,
Adam, just to finish my thought here,
Yeah.
We are yet to connect the dot between the comfort, wellness, productivity of the people to the dollar value. What is the cost of my people?
yeah.
And again, not to divert the subject here, but I think HVAC industry is enjoying the passive consumer. A passive consumer. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. If your cell phone stops working today, at this moment, I said, Robert, finish this podcast right now. I need to go to the store and check it out, correct? And I fix this phone, and in 2 days later, it again fails, and I go and fix it. And third time, I throw this phone in a dustbin and go for another phone company. Okay? Take that analogy to you and me and everyone who is working in the home or in the office. And my feet get cold in ASHA conference, in plenary session. To whom I should complain?
Mhm.
Where should I complain? Who is listening to me?
You hit the nail on the head there. HVAC is a low consequence business.
Yes. And who is responsible for that? You, me, and people.
Yeah. Everybody
And
and
what-
nobody is the answer.
So what we need to do is make people aware that IEQ is their fundamental human right. Don't take your environment for granted. You complain, you demand. As you demand for your cell phone the best performance, you demand best HVAC performance.
Yeah.
If people start doing that, the world will come from the ducts to the floor.
God,
Yep.
you've hit on like my big thing. The greatest power ever known to man is consumer disobedience. How's your
Yeah.
BlackBerry phone working? Not good, right? So, Robert, question for you quickly then.
Yep.
I am still gobsmacked. I mean, obviously, since I've met you, I know how you are with like Ash-Rate 55, right? I am amazed, and I've only really started noticing this since I've met you, about how few people even open that standard.
Yeah, so let me share with the audience, and Kishor, I don't know if you've read some of my stuff on this. So over I think it was 19-year period, I interviewed my audience. And this includes, just to make this short, in 1 year, I did a lecture at Building Science Summer Camp with Joe Stiebrook. Okay, I think there was over 400 people in the audience. And then I went north and I did Building Science Spring Camp with Dr. John Straub, Gord Cook, Andy Oding, and a couple of other individuals. And there was, I think, 200 people, 600 of North America's top practicing engineers, technicians, architects, tradespeople. And I did a series of questions which concluded with how many people can actually do a compliance test to ASHRAE 55, and it's less than 1.5%.
Oh.
And so just to give the people an idea, so I would say I would get everybody in the audience to stand. So just imagine you're at the front of the room as a lecturer, and you get 400 or 200 people to stand up, and then you say, okay, if you were somehow related to thermal comfort, either as an insulation manufacturer, as an architect, as an engineer, as an inspector, as a manufacturer of blower door tests, whatever, if you are somehow related to thermal comfort, you can remain standing. And of course, the whole audience remains standing because thermal comfort is a universal desire. And then I asked the question, okay, for those that are still standing, how many of you are aware that there's actual thermal comfort standard? And a few people will sit down, and then I'll ask the question. This is what gets at a lot of people sitting down. I'll say, all right, if you know the name of the standard, you can remain standing. And of course, almost 60% of the audience sits down because they don't know the name of the standard.
We should video this one.
And then I'll ask the audience, okay, if you know the name of the standard, do you know the 10 criteria, now 11 criteria that's required for compliance? And at that point, there might be maybe 7% of the audience still standing. And then I'll say to the 7%, I'll say, okay, if you are aware of there's a standard, you know the name of the standard, you know the 11 metrics in it, how many of you can actually do a compliance test? And what's left is round 1.5% of the audience.
That is,
and so I stand there and I'm looking at, so this is, I have 2 conferences, and I've done this now for almost 19 years. You have 600 of top practitioners in North America, and less than 1.5% can do a compliance test. And then my brain says, okay, if this was the world of accounting, law, medicine, first responders, if there was only 1.5% competency, what would society say? And yet
you're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Right. And so, Adam, you're bang on. HVAC is a low consequence industry. And Kishor, you're the whole philosophy about the individuals and the rights. We have to find a way to get people to stand up. Just like you said, stand up and start complaining, because that's the only way that we're going to change this.
Yeah. And so your data of 1% is very accurate, because I do the same thing. I did, like you, 150 lectures worldwide. And this is my pet question. I asked them, how many of you know ASHRAE standard 55? 1% hands. Correct? And then I said, of these 1%, how many of you really use in your design? 1% of 1%.
Yep.
And so your data is right. Why is this happening? Because there is no accountability. Correct? Accountability. See, people take pride. Talk to so many MEP firms. They say, oh, we never got a call from our client. Our clients are happy. Who are your clients?
You can't call someone if you can't find them, right?
Architects never call you because they don't know what the hell is going on. Correct? And then owner, that's where the problem is. See, we are in a low-cost building business.
Yes.
Okay. So it means, yes, sir.
Yep.
The owner said, build that building for me. Interviews 3 architects. And one architect said, I will do it at 60% of the cost. Whatever. My numbers may be wrong here. Say 80% of others cost. Go for it. Now, this architect, if somebody says, I'm not going to reduce my cost because I'm going to do the real due diligence. What is that real due diligence? When my design is on the paper, I will make sure that people are comfortable, happy, productive, healthy in your building. I will assure. And then what is the missing link where we can philosophically, we can talk for whole day. When it comes to the profit, when it comes to the margin, if this architect says, I can reduce your seat leave by 30%, and I can make sure people will not leave at 3 o'clock because they are too hot or too cold. They will stay at 6 o'clock, beyond 5 o'clock. I will improve your productivity. Well, and nobody is willing to do that because nobody is sure what IAQ and IAQ is going to do to the health, well-being, and there are papers, there are books written on this one, but I don't have yet the formula that I can go and say, so I improved the product, I improved your IAQ by 10%, hence my profitability increased by 30%. Whatever.
So let me explain to you why none of that happens, right? So what you were talking about is there's no feedback loop from the occupants to the people who design and build these things, right? That's true, there is no. And this is one of the things I understood when I went from being an engineer to a property developer.
Yeah.
I thought property developers like Hines and people like that are building buildings. No. In their mind, they are building financial assets.
Mm-hmm.
You and I see a building. They see a financial asset to lease and make money on and then securitize the money. Right. So if you're selling, I can get people to be working in this building to be more efficient, more comfortable. It doesn't factor into their thinking, not even a millimeter, because that is nothing to do with them being able to lease and make money and building, right?
Yep. Yeah,
right. This is the problem. I never understood that till I worked and was responsible for the money. And then all of a sudden, oh shit, I really misunderstood this my whole life.
Exactly. And the reason the financial aspect is connected to brick, mortar, and land. Not for the people. Remember, not for the people.
No.
But if we change the mindset, if we change this industry, and if I give a certificate for your IAQ and IAQ, building A, building B, same square footage, same material of construction, same architect, same engineer, but building A has plus 3 points on IAQ, its asset will go up. Its asset will go up. Remember, its value will go up. Then,
okay, another little bit of insight here, right?
Yeah.
This is why I think LEED and all these certificates is cosplaying and LARPing. LARPing is live action role playing, right? And cosplaying is dressing up. I think it's all BS. Because here's why. Developers see those as marketing tools. So if you develop a building, you go to your leasing agent and say, right, what do I need to build? I need a triple F. They go, BREEAM Gold, LEED Platinum, this system, this system. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Right? The only way you do what you're talking about is if we got to connect user feedback directly to, I'd love to give the users I've built a AAA building in London. Norman Foster has designed it. I want to give his personal number to everyone who goes in that building. You're not happy? Call this dude.
Yeah.
You see how fast that changes and how much his fees go up.
Exactly. About the LEED, let me, on positive side, they created the awareness about the...
Yeah, so that's my love-hate. They created good intention and awareness, and that has been...
Yeah, right? But in real world, it has become a points game. You put the shower, you put the bike rack, you get the points, and you collect the points. I have seen, I worked with the companies, correct? How they get their LEED certification.
Yeah.
Correct? So they have IAQ component there, but I don't know who cares about that. How many points you earn and where is the proof? So here is your point. I should do this at design level because CFD can help you test this
Yeah.
at design level, how people will feel. What is their ASHA 55 indices, correct? Percent mean vote and percent dissatisfied. I can predict that. And here is my another problem with what I learned over the years. And again, I don't claim to be right. If somebody prove me wrong, I'm willing to listen to that. Correct? Right? I'm willing to change my mindset. Look about the codes and standards in our industry.
Robert's gonna.
Robert, like you, probably we are on a couple of codes and standards committees, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen very closely. Don't take me now. We need standards, we need codes. Because what they ensure that the solutions, HVAC is equitable to everyone. Correct? I'm not going to cut corner because you're paying me $50,000 less to build this building and I can bypass you. You can't do that. You have to follow codes. There's a minimum level. Correct? That's the bottom line. Well, people don't understand what codes and standards are. They think if I design the building according to the code, it has to be the good building, not necessary.
Yep.
That's a
people
minimum.
don't understand that, and that's one of the things that we have to overcome. We're getting towards the end of the interview, which we got to keep this going because Kishor, you have a lot. I love. Well, we love chatting with you, and you've got some great views. But before we go, I still want to talk to you about a few things. One is there's a statistic that I've seen used several times, and I pulled it up here on the screen. And why this is important is because in many ways it's the statistic that demonstrates why IEQ is important. So many years ago, I think it was the U.S. Department of Labor and a couple of other organizations, and maybe even Dr. Bjarne Olsen was involved, at least in his circle, and they concluded that there's a ratio 1 to 10 to 100.
Yeah. I'm
For every dollar of utility costs, you would spend $10 for rent, but you would spend $100 for salaries and benefits.
Yes.
So I want people to understand that. And whenever and as you guys you're both speakers as well, there's always somebody in the audience that's a sniper, right? When you throw out a statistic, they're going to challenge you on that. And I want people to understand that I don't really care, because even if the statistics here have an error of 20%, it doesn't change the message. And the message is that the people cost is the number one cost. And if you can increase productivity even by 2-3%, it makes the energy bill look like belly button lint.
Yeah.
It's just not important. So we have an entire industry with blinders on, energy, and they don't understand that is not the number one cost.
Exactly. And that's the problem, because
for me, it's like people are focusing on the football, and they should be and where the problem is actually the field. Like or they want to turn the energy into the big discussion, but it's like the gnat on the donkey's ass. Like,
yeah. And here is my another favorite statement I make. And anyone out there who is listening to my podcast here, if you think I'm wrong, write to me. I'm willing to. Here is my statement, a bold statement I make. All energy efficient buildings are not human-centric buildings. They're not comfortable buildings.
Well said.
But all human-centric buildings are energy efficient.
Absolutely. Bang on. Bravo. Stand up, Kishor. Stand up.
That's a mic drop.
Take a bow. You're right. You're absolutely right. I wrote a book on, and I don't know if I gave a copy of that to you.
I did. I want that.
Yeah. And I talk about how, people have been misled by well-intentioned individuals within government and energy programs, that if you install this, certified thermostat, this energy-based thermostat that you're going to be comfortable. Or you hear even today, like, and this drives me absolutely nuts. I'm actually going to take industry on this subject. Heat pumps. Heat pumps will deliver comfort. No, they don't. They deliver energy through ducts and pipes. That's all they're doing. They don't.
Yes.
You can't put comfort on a serving tray and say, "Here's your comfort." That's not how it works.
Exactly.
Stop it. Just stop it.
That is the very reason I think CFD is the way to go. Because we are living in the world of set point temperature.
Right.
We are living in the world of well-mixed theory. Look at all these million papers written on ventilation effectiveness, correct? All those theories. My article will come out in National Journal in few months. And I said, how to design ventilation beyond codes and standards. Well, air moves around you. There is no set point temperature. Set point temperature is that thermostat.
It's a terrible proxy for thermal comfort. I'm totally with you on that.
Yes.
And so CFD will cost you 10% of your design cost. Okay. So if the design cost is $1, cost of people is $10,000. Okay. $10,000. Cost of CFD is 10 cents. And here is the thing. When you spend $1 on design without doing CFD, you have no idea how people will feel in this space.
Exactly.
No clue.
Yeah.
What you are only ensuring that you did your load cal, you did 20 degrees Fahrenheit delta T, you know how much is the capacity of air handler, you put the ductwork in, and somebody told you four-way diffusers are good, so put it there, and then, what about the return? I don't know, put it anywhere you want.
Yeah.
Correct? That is the state. That is the current state. And then, if at all I'm saying, by the way, make sure we meet the code size standards. Okay. Here is my last line. Code size standards protect whom?
Yeah, the builders and the designers.
Yes.
The trades. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the legal defense, right? Yes, Your Honor. It's a standard. I designed it. It's a standard. Done.
Yeah. And some ASHRAE members live on this concept because their whole business in their lifetime is they become expert witness.
Oh, yeah.
And their expert witness pool in the code is the ASHRAE standard and code and whatnot. Correct? They're experts in codes.
Yeah.
And they defend their client on the codes. Because we need to educate judges and juries. Like, look, codes are not the end of the thing. If somebody gets harmed in the building, if somebody develops a cancer or somebody gets sick every other day, every other month in the building, it's not because the building is designed according to the code or not designed according to code. There is something beyond the code.
Mm-hmm.
And unless the judge and jury understand, they should ask this question: have you done CFD analysis at the design stage? And do you have the record to show me PMV and PPD?
Yeah. So, and then people need to understand this again, like, standards are not codes. And the only time a standard becomes enforceable is when it's actually required as a requirement of the building code. So the code has to say, thou shalt comply with ASHRAE, whatever standard it is that you want. And people need to understand that when it comes to codes, they are about reducing the probability that somebody's going to get sick. And there's a big difference between someone getting sick and someone being comfortable, either through lighting, sound, vibration, odors, and thermal comfort and air quality. Right? Not the same thing. People need to understand that. And today, like, and again, going back to the practitioner using codes as their defense in a trial, it says in many codes that in the occupied space, thou shalt maintain whatever, take 20 degrees C or 68 Fahrenheit or 72 degree Fahrenheit. And that is the benchmark. So all they have to do is hold up the thermostat and say, if this is our thermostat read And that stands as the testament that the system met the requirements. Even though the people could be freezing, it doesn't matter. The testament is what's on the thermostat. And the thermostat is, as you said, set point control. It is the worst proxy for the occupant to the HVAC system. And that's what a thermostat is. It's supposed to be the ambassador, isn't it? Yep. We think the thermostat is the ambassador of the HVAC system, yet it does not measure what we sense.
Exactly. The thermostat is not on your feet, because why your feet are cold.
Right. So there's a whole bunch of reasons. So one other thing before we go, and Adam,
yeah, I know we're getting fired up here, but just quickly, you just identified the difference between code and a standard is the value you get.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people need to understand that they don't. We could go so many places with this. I want to challenge you, Kishor, and I want to challenge other members of ASHRAE to one thing, and that is that for the longest time, and this is one of my soapboxes, people have used, and you don't, but because you've differentiated, but a lot of people use the term indoor air quality and indoor environmental quality as if they're synonymous, or they'll use them interchangeably. And I have been challenging the world of ASHRAE and architecture to understand that IEQ, indoor environmental quality, applies to all of the environmental metrics: sound, lighting, thermal comfort, vibration, air quality, and odors. And that we need to use the definition correctly, because if we don't, then we're just contributing to the illiteracy that exists within the field of IEQ.
100%.
So I just want to leave, and maybe this is my final question for you, because we always do a quick roundup question.
Yeah.
So maybe this is my question to you, Kishor. How do we get the world of property development, architecture, building science, the application of engineering, interior design, all of this, and then in the trades, to understand what IEQ means and to understand the definition correctly, and then also to use it correctly, stop using IEQ as a surrogate for IEQ, because that's not what it's all about. Stop using IEQ to represent just IEQ, because it represents all of the metrics. How do we go and approach that? That's my question to you. How do we approach the industry and get them to start using the definitions properly?
Yeah. So for me to answer this question in a proper way, we need another podcast for this. But very quickly, education of the people. They are our client. They are the consumer of HVAC industry. And for that, you, me, and Adam, and everyone who is willing to work with us, not for money, but for this philosophy that we need to change the world. We need to go to schools. We need to go to Rotary clubs. We need to go to local councils and every public churches, temples. Go there and say, give me 10 minutes to talk about how you feel in the building. And we don't want to go with ASHRAE standard 55. We need to go with the language.
Yep, absolutely.
Why your feet are cold? It's not your fault. It's the fault who designed your building. Understand? Number one, correct? Number two, little bit same level of education to the building owners. Don't go to the architects. Because you and I are talking in ASHRAE to each other. And still our feet are cold in plenary session. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we just talk there for a minute. Oh, it's so cold here. And we forget about it. That one of us designed that ballroom. Correct? So don't go to ASHRAE for this. Don't go to architects. Don't go to engineers. We need to go to building owners. And when we go to them, we need to put the dollars and cents together. Not only we educate them why your people are important to you, how much they cost you, maybe ask them how many sick leaves you get. I mean, when somebody is complaining they are getting sick every month, we say something is wrong with you. You should exercise. You should have good diet and check your blood and urine and whatnot. And in spite of doing that, the person is getting sick, then Has someone questioned something is wrong with the building?
No.
Where does IAQ and IAQ come into the picture? Very last, even if it comes. Okay. So we need to put the profitability equation for the owners.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we need education at two levels for the people and those who own the buildings. Right? Not architects, not engineers, not ASHRAE, not ASHI. No,
because all those people react, right?
we know that.
Yeah.
We know. I mean, I'm teaching ASHRAE 55 to Robert, and Robert is teaching me back. And now we are preaching the choir.
Yeah. That's quite a circle jerk.
Right.
And my last comment, before I come back again, my last comment, even ASHRAE standard 55 assigns one number, one index, whatever percent being out or percent dissatisfied, to its entire space. And I said, that is wrong.
No, it's to the person.
It should be to the person. Yes.
Yeah.
And it means you had to do CFD for that, not the back of the envelope calculation. Not just what is the set point temperature, what is set point RH, what is the radiant, and then you come with one number for the room. That's not good.
That's when people do that, they're not interpreting the standard correctly, because the standard is all about the representative occupant. And this is where oh man, Kishor, we could talk forever on this. Adam, the book.
Maybe we need an ASHRAE 55 episode, actually.
Yeah. People need to understand that, like, there's several terms within the standard, but one of them is the operative temperature, which represents the dry bulb and the mean radiant. But what's important here is that where the person goes, so goes the operative temperature. It's not the thermostat on the wall.
It's a moving point, right? It's a moving target.
It is a moving, and it's time dependent. It's transient in nature. There's a lot of circumstances, and the only way to do an assessment is to do an assessment either on a transient basis or do several static analysis, maybe 12 times a year, certain months. Those ones that are the peak load, so you can get an idea of where the stress levels are in that space. But it follows the person. It's not the compliance with 55 is not a space compliance. It's a person compliance.
Yes, and that is a big ignorance about National Standard 55.
Yeah.
And you were short of saying that we should do CFD for that.
I don't know if you know who Hema Murdy is, but we've had her on twice. One is a standalone guest, and the other one is part of a group of people that we had on to address COVID, actually, and where CFD was used a lot to understand particle flows in spaces. And she's an amazing woman. I love her. She like you said, like the passion, and her knowledge. She has such a broad interest in everything around her, whether it's health, sports, environment. But anyways, her area of expertise is in the space area. And she's worked with military developers of both fixed wing and rotary wing aircraft, trying to understand. And we asked her a question about the difficulties in doing CFD analysis, at Mach 2 or Mach 3 speeds. And she goes, piece of cake. When you're traveling at Mach 3, everything is stable. That's not where the problems are. The problems are when you get into transitional flow, where you don't know whether you're turbulent or whether you're laminar, and the planes become unstable. So that's where the challenges are, and that's where the CFD is beautiful, because you can use that tool to try to understand those aircraft as they travel through space in different conditions.
Yeah, but next time, I was thinking both of you will challenge me on CFD. I wanted to hear that. But next time you challenge me on CFD.
We will.
and start with the statement that CFD is a BS. Start with it.
I know enough about CFD just to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And by the way, our world is not in supersonic world.
Yeah.
No.
And so Our problems, technology-wise, are not complex, but complex enough
Yeah.
to solve them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things she said when we had her on the when we had there was I think we had him on Dr. Miller from Colorado, and I think we had Bill Bonfleff on, and then we had Professor from Oxford. What was his name? He did the seminar or the lecture on engineering ethics under Adolf Hitler.
Roland
Clift.
Which
was a great. It was a great. Anyways, like she was talking about, when you're in a restaurant and the room is infected with a virus, just even somebody closing the menu disturbs the airflow in right.
Yeah,
or when somebody walks by and creates these eddies, and so someone coughs into the air, someone walks by, creates an eddy, Bernoulli, right? Brings that particles in and then takes it down to the next table. And that's
where now you are getting into academic work.
Yeah. So, but it makes you think. One thing I love about CFD and even FEA is it takes your brain into an illustrative world that takes numbers and turns them into vectors, or if you want to use painted color graphs, and allows you to see the world other than through an Excel spreadsheet.
But
those are just the means. They're not just the tools. But coming back to the restaurant example, I agree with what you said, but what is the most important thing is where the diffusers are, where the return is. People forget. You have to look for a return if there is any return in this room. Okay. So if you read my Ashley Journal article on the aerodynamic containment of contaminant, you will see that why the location of diffusers and location of return is more important than anything else.
Are you talking about calendar effect here and all that stuff?
Kind of. But we can talk about this next time. But the thing is, people get hung up with opening the menu. And many people ask me, people are not moving in your CFD model. I said, make them happy first when they're seated. Then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I mean, the whole opening the menu was just a way to illustrate the disturbances that can occur in a space. And the person walking through disturbing the space. I remember I was in a plane flying from Manila to somewhere in Indonesia. No, sorry, we were actually in the Philippines. And we've all been in places where hot, humid climates, and you get into a plane and they turn the air conditioning system off and the inside of the plane instantly goes to fog. Right?
Yes.
And you are now in a live experimental chamber watching disturbances as people walk down the aisle, opening up the luggage, right? You can actually see it.
Yeah.
What do they call it? The Caspers? The air nozzles?
Yeah.
I think that's what they call them, right? The Caspers? You know, when they turn on and now you've got these jets of these plumes and how they spread and how they get disturbed. So that was the point of the dialogue, was more about what happens when someone walks by or someone opens up a book or
it's infinitely complex, right? This is the Indonesia causing the hurricane.
Correct. Adam and Robert, my thinking is, if you properly design the HVAC system, all these effects become secondary. The primary airflow pattern is from the HVAC system. The primary airflow pattern is coming from the nozzle. In the air. You imagine the discharge velocity from the nozzle versus the velocity of a person who is walking, and the wake forming behind a person. Much smaller than
this is this is important. Stop, because the motive force of the air system has to overcome the physical disturbances that occur. So there's an energy and mass thing. There's a collision that goes on, and the power, the motive force from the HVAC system has to overcome that.
Exactly. And those non-believers in CFD, they start from here. Oh, what about the moving people? I should forget about it. If you don't know what is the static situation is, before understanding, appreciating, and optimizing the static system, you're talking about more complex dynamic system.
Yeah.
It's this is the place where people want to hide behind it, not to do CFD.
So what I heard there was, what you're saying is if you get the primary airflow right,
Yep.
it all suppresses the secondary effects.
Reduce it, minimize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reduce it. If you have poor ventilation, then all these things, even opening the menu will exaggerate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we talked about this like in classrooms where, the Corsi Rosenthal boxes during the COVID, where we tried to get these into classrooms, and the so many people fought that, and which was unfortunate. But talking about the breathing space and the way that the airflow patterns, you've got air being distributed from the HVAC system into the space, and then you've got independent filtration within the space.
Yeah.
And the arguments against in-space filtration, to this day, I still don't understand how people, even a basic understanding, how they would refuse to have these filtration devices. And I think, the new standard ASHRAE 241, I think addresses that, in terms of efficacy, in terms of cleaning the air.
Efficacy. But I'm a member of 241.
Yeah.
And it is still short of addressing the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
next issue.
Yeah. That's
Adam, what's your question?
Round one, done. All right, Kishor, look, thank you so much for coming on. That was awesome. Really enjoyed that. I never thought I could actually get into a discussion on CFD, so you've changed me already.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, Adam, if you're going to have the title Yoda of most things, well, you have to have some CFD, corruption in your mind. So now you've been corrupted.
It's a problem. Like, Peter Simmons is one of my heroes. So if he's out, I'm out. But now I'm sort of back in again.
Yeah.
Well, I know Peter's used CFD when he was looking at, I think it was the, it was a museum.
Yeah, I know that.
It was a crazy,
You needed like laminar flow or something, did you?
Well, Dr. Stieberk, when he talks about architects and engineers and designing, he says, engineers will take a roof line that looks like this.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Right? But an architect will do this, and then that's the roof line.
That's right. That's
right? Well, so Peter did it, and you guys, the name of the brand, it's one of the famous perfume clothing brands in the world. And they did a museum, and Peter had to do some analysis for that building, and he had to use a CFD in order to understand what these people were going to experience in terms of airflow patterns. There was no other way of doing it.
Yeah.
So for him, it was a necessary evil, I guess, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but that's what people think, that I need to have very complex building to do CFD. It's not.
Yeah.
Because I'm not claiming that CFD will solve every problem, but it's the best tool to have.
No, but you're an advocate for it being an everyday design tool, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Nailed it.
Okay.
That's why I should have been Don Draper. Anyway, Kishor, thanks very much for coming on.
The Edifice Complex will continue in just a moment.
Are you passionate about the built environment? Do you want to learn from the industry's most inspiring, intelligent, and accomplished professionals? Then the companion to this podcast, Wisdom of the Property Crowd, is just the book for you. From Edifice Complex podcast interviews, this book distills the critical thinking, insight, and ideas of some of the property industry's most accomplished and respected practitioners. Each chapter is a synopsis of an hour-plus interview, capturing the takeaways and insights, including diagrams and images, to help explain concepts and ideas. There's also a brief bio about the interviewee and a QR code linked to the podcast episode for those that want to explore further. These are the mentors you wish you had in college. Wisdom of the Property Crowd by Adam Muggleton. Available on Amazon worldwide.
And now, back to the show.
I'm lost for words because we could have kept talking to Kishor for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I've done some work with some other CFD people. Of course, Hema's on my radar screen always. I always keep her in the back of my mind. But there's other organizations that are in the industry. What I liked about Kishor was his coming up to me, hitting me on the side of the head, saying, "Hey, you're talking about FEA, but why not CFD?" And then from that point on, I was always intrigued with it. But one of the things I like about him, and he used the word as activist. He is an activist. He's the activist is what he is. He wants to change the world. He wants to empower people. Like you said, like in terms of change, is the people, the populace complaining enough?
Yeah.
You've talked before in the past about BlackBerry and what happened to it. Didn't take much, right?
Listen, mate, when the peasants revolt, things change.
Right.
It takes a lot to get them to revolt en masse, right? That's the problem.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what Kishor's trying to do. He's trying to get the mass, the populace to revolt.
I've never seen anyone give me a passionate, compelling reason to use CFD. You know what I mean? Till now. That was actually quite interesting because he really believes it, right? He was all fired up. And the way he was describing it, I could get on board with that quite well, actually.
Yeah, well, he's like you said, it opened up his eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, again, he represents, when you pitched me on the idea of the Edifice complex, and it was about bringing in people that were adjacent thinkers, people that, that were the turbulence, that were creating people and he is that turbulent individual, not that his personality is turbulent. He's obviously a very gentle man, very kind. But his intent is to create turbulence and to refocus what we should be looking at. And when he started to work with CFD, that opened up his eyes. I mean, talk about a guy who was educated in the world of agriculture and then moved it over into buildings.
Yeah, that's right. You don't know where your career's going to go, right? You zigzag through life. That's a fact.
You don't. And we're coming up on our 100th episode here soon. And everybody that we've had on has had an interesting career story. I mean, if I was a parent today, again, we obviously have a bias towards our podcast here, but man, if you ever wanted advice, if you're a kid in school or you're a parent and you're trying to provide advice and they have a brain for STEM, you need to listen to these people.
People like Kishor, Peter Simmons, they're exactly the right people because they are the best kept secrets in the world. Mm-hmm. They're doing great work. Their brains are bigger than a freaking power station and no one knows who they are. And that bothers me so much. No one knows who the flashy architect is. No one knows who the great engineer is.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that you said to me in the beginning is that we need to find who the superheroes are.
Yeah.
The McConaughey-Gregors of the world of, who are those people? And that's what you hit the nail on the head when you said, Robert, I want to do this podcast. I want to bring people in who are the superheroes that nobody knows who they are, but the buildings around the world exist because of these individuals. And, we've been doing that.
Listen, there's work to do. Remember whenever I ask any of the guests, who's the Elon Musk of our business? The best answer I've ever had. And the only answer is Isabel Kingdom Brunel, who the last time I checked died 150 years ago. But that did something, right? He built bridges, he built ships, he was the engineer's engineer. And everybody celebrated him. And no one does that anymore.
Yeah, the two of you just sort of hit on something that got me fired up, and that was HVAC is a low consequence.
Yeah, I know. I could see you get.
And I get agitated about that because when you start to think about the statistics and people and the cost of people in buildings versus energy and rent, and how not misdirected, but the target is everybody focuses on the wrong target, and the consequences are energy consumption, bad post-occupancy valuations, poor productivity,
but think about this though, right? I mean, basically, most of my career has been in the private sector, right? So you build to let or sell, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a bit different to building a university building. But there's no consequences for them things you've just listed. Yeah. Bad air quality, unhappy people. If I've rented that building for 25 years, you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I care about the rent coming in every month. That's it. And there's so many legal ways I can get my money off you.
people need to understand buildings are it's financial geometry. That's
Yes,
all it is.
absolutely.
It's financial geometry, and it's just number crunching. It's a cash flow machine.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you're building up your share value, that's all they care about. They don't give a rat's ass who's in the building, what they do in the building. All they're looking for at the end of the month is that check, and they're looking at their expenses, and they're hoping at the end of the day that check puts money in the bank. That's it.
People don't get, and this was brutal for me because I was all engineering fucking story opener stuff, right? There is a development gain, which is Latin for a profit on building a building, and there's a hurdle rate in terms of yield. If I was even 0.5% off that thing did not go ahead. Right? That money, it was all about the money.
Yeah.
That was it. If it looked nice, awesome, right? Because that was the brand, AAA office. But if it didn't meet the return on investment hurdles, it just didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Yeah. So we have to find a way, and I think there's the beginning of that. Like, there's enough thoroughbreds in the world of real estate development now, these flagship buildings that, are showing that there's a benefit to good indoor environmental quality and making sure that the spaces are designed for the people. But by and large, those numbers are still pale compared to the inventory that exists. Anyway,
mate, listen, we got, that was interesting because as the podcast warmed up, it really got a few people got fired up there, and it was interesting seeing a few of the triggers going and the emotion coming out there, right?
Well, and what we're talking about, why the heat is because moving from the philosophical discussion to actually applying this shit in reality, and that is a big hurdle there. I got so many notes here that
so many notes. Was that all energy centric buildings are not human centric?
Yeah, did you write that down?
Yeah, and I'm going to go over that again and make sure I capture it properly. That was a great mic drop moment.
That is a mic drop moment, and I'm glad Kishor said that because it's so true. There's delusion in the world of energy programs that think if you make an energy efficient building that the building is going to be comfortable. No, just stop that. Like there's nothing to say that you can say that with 100% accuracy because there's so many buildings that have been designed under the auspices of energy efficiency that are terrible.
Correct.
Poor lighting, poor sound, poor thermal comfort, air quality, sucks, blah, blah, blah. So stop it, people out there. Just stop it.
So this is the law of unintended consequences. You remember when the energy crisis back in the 70s and 80s led to reduced outside air requirements, which led to sick building syndrome.
Right. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Is energy the same thing now? We design for energy. There's going to be unintended consequences for that. Right?
Yep. Building-related illnesses and sick building syndrome. Those were the two terms that came out of it. And one of them, the difference between the two terms is that you went into a building, you got sick, you left the building, you became well. Or you'd walk into a building and you would develop a permanent illness. And so a good example of that is, say you have a building that's got let's just say even relatively low exposure to carbon monoxide.
Yes.
There's backdraft in a building, so people get exposed. They don't know until they start to the symptoms, but as soon as they leave the building, they can get better again.
Yep.
If you go walk into a building over a period of time and you inhale asbestos, now you have an illness, long-term illness that could kill you from being inside that building. So that's what those two terms were all about. Those terms were developed like decades ago, and yet we still
struggle with it, right?
We still struggle with it.
Yeah. Anyway, we should wrap up there, but there's some deep thoughts come out of that. I never thought I'd get deep thoughts like we had out of a conversation about CFD, which is quite funny.
The interview went longer than what we normally do, Adam, but I couldn't stop. I mean, he'd keep asking questions and he would keep replying, and we'll have him on again, and it's a great dialogue. So that's all to you, Mr. Muggleton, having this podcast. Good on you, buddy, because
this is what being an angry old man gets you. I'll see you on the next one, man.
All right, sir. Cheers.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Edifice Complex podcast with Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean. To access show notes for this episode, visit edificecomplexpodcast.com. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes. See you next time.